Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar where we'll be taking a look at the role of agriculture in the water cycle and how to identify, prioritise and respond to agricultural associated water risks in your business. My name is Stephen Kennett and I look after the Water Risk Working Group here at 2 Degrees. I'm delighted to welcome our presenter today, Caroline Drummond, Chief Executive of the Farming and Environment charity Linking Environment and Farming, or LEAF. Caroline has over 2 decades experience in the area of sustainable farming practices. Her presentation today will last for around 25 minutes, which will leave us with 10 minutes for questions at the end. Before we begin, I'd just like to remind everyone that you can submit questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A box on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Just type in your question and press send, and then we'll wait till the end before answering as many as we can. As an aside, if you should have any technical issues during the presentation, please use the chat box on the right-hand side to send me a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So without any further delay, I'd like to hand over to Caroline, who will get us started with today's webinar. So over to you, Caroline.
Good. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about some of the work that we're doing with where food and water meet. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the experiences that we've had on farm, and in particular, I'll just get up onto my next slide, a brief introduction of what we do at LEAF, an overview of water use and obviously its importance in agriculture, and then some work that we've been developing with ASDA and Molson Coors, which is a series of publications and guidance tools for farmers, one being simply sustainable water, and a good tongue twister here, 6 simple steps for managing water quality and water use on your land. And I'll be just going through those 6 simple steps. And then giving a bit of an on-farm practical example. We've got a video as well on this. So if you're interested to look at that a bit later, then it's a good way of seeing it happening in practice really on farm too. So what we are at LEAF is we're the leading organisation delivering sustainable food and farming, a farming and environment charity with particular aspects in terms of looking at a farming system that embraces the best of modern technology, but in addition to that, the best of traditional methods through integrated farm management. And we're not a large organisation, but we cascade information through a delivery mechanism which includes farmers, management tools, the use of a marketing tool, LEAF Mark, and great public engagement. So specifically, that's facilitating knowledge generation and exchange amongst farmers and researchers. And we have a network of demonstration farms here in the UK and innovation centres that we work with. And those farmers are representing the practicalities of integrated farm management and act as very good development and test beds, really. We also produce farm business management tools, self-assessment audits, environmental management systems, a range of events, and obviously tools like simply sustainable water. I don't know if many of you have been into Waitrose, looked on Floret, perhaps gone into the Unilever website, but you might see there, or you will see there, the LEAF Mark standard. And what this represents is a sustainable food label. It's now a global label and clearly demonstrates where farmers have gone beyond food safety aspects, the extra mile to deliver a good environment through waste management, water management, as well as biodiversity and soil management. And then if ever, well, June the 8th next year is Open Farm Sunday, and each year over 360 farmers will open up their farms right across the country to engage the public out in the countryside. 200,000 people went out onto farm this year on Open Farm Sunday, and we've had over 1 million people that have gone out onto farm. And this is really critical because if our farmers are doing good things and the industry is doing some fantastic things in delivering sustainable practices, then communicating that and getting a good, honest and open dialogue out in farming, out on farm is really important. And actually it's also very important for water management as well, because a lot of people recognise the use and the challenges really that water management can do. And then we work on a project engaging those people that are deprived of getting out onto farm looking particularly at through disability or through where they're actually located. And so we have a project called Let Nature Feed Your Senses, which has been fantastic at really looking at well-being on public, but the benefits through farming. So that's a little bit about us, and this is what integrated farm management looks like. So I don't know if anybody's ever been to somewhere like Cirque du Soleil, but the great opportunity there is that there are people, there are clowns, there are jugglers juggling 10 balls at any one time. And, 9 balls particularly is where farmers are. And it brings together the full integration of decision-making on the farm. So when you do something differently to soil management, it will impact your crop health, also crop disease prevention, right through to animal husbandry, water management, biodiversity, and things like that. So there is a real integration between day-to-day decisions on farm, particularly when you're so exposed to climatic conditions on a day-by-day basis. So for us, it's getting a framework to allow and support farmers in making the right decisions against those particular areas. So today's an opportunity to talk about specifically water management. Agriculture uses a lot of water. 40% of the world's population face water shortages, and I think that is one of the biggest challenges, as we're predicted by 2030 needing 50% more food and energy. We also, to support that, need 30% more available fresh water, and that's in our growing, in our drinking, and also in our cooking. So this is sort of against a backdrop really of climate change, and we just have to look at the weather that we're having here in the UK at the moment, and that we've seen over the last 2 years as well, and it's a similar story right across the globe as well. I was just looking at some figures yesterday in Australia, and across Australia they were suffering in some areas severe drought, right through to high humidity, the worst disease incidences that they've seen in the watermelon industry, right to flooding, and then looking at how do you combat that. And that brings itself big challenges for the farming sector, as well as obviously other people in urban and rural areas. So for agriculture, we use across the globe in the UK 184 million cubic tons of water every year, with drinking water and for livestock being a substantial part of that, and irrigation at 38%. So the challenge is making sure that we look at the water sources, where it comes from, and of course the opportunity and the efficiency of the plants to take them up. So this is very much where we've come through in terms of developing practical tools such as simply sustainable water. And of course we've had extreme weather. We've had 2 years of lower than average rainfall, followed by record rainfall in 2012, followed by extreme temperatures and snowfall in early 2013 to hot sunshine in July 2013. So it's important for farmers and land managers to develop practical risk management approaches on farm to get this balance right. And that's not only for production, for continuity of supply, but also obviously to alleviation on things like flooding and animal health and welfare. And in fact, some of the things that in Australia, it's going right through to farmer welfare as well. I noticed that in Charleville alone, they were looking at 40 workshops, stress-related workshops, to help and support farmers who are dealing with stress relating to drought. So there's some impacts it has on the farming individually. So the little guidance management that we have developed has been in association with ASDA and Molson Coors, very much looking at the starting point of addressing corporate sustainability objectives, but also practical steps that the supply chain can take on board in terms of what are you doing now, where can you do it better, and how can you move forward as well. So for ASDA, that's been really important. It's a competitive business. They have a very good relationship with their growers, and so it's looking at how do you make that more resilient in terms of the supply chain. Getting collaboration amongst the suppliers. Peer pressure in the farming industry is a fantastic way of helping, challenging, changing, things like that. The importance of efficiency and resource management and advocacy, and that's always key. And then right through to the importance of selling sustainable agriculture, meeting the consumer demands. And there is a very strong correlation, even during the recession, the values that the consumer sees embedded in their purchasing of food are good environmental criteria, of course, as well as food safety and things like that. And so, we're moving towards more healthy, sustainable diets, which are very key. And for Molson Coors, in brewing beer, they use a lot of barley. Here in the UK, they have some very strong farmer groups that we were working with as well. And they currently use 4 pints of beer to brew 1 pint of beer. So water footprinting has been very, very important for them. So they've set ambitious targets by 2020 to improve water efficiency by 20% compared to 2011. And that, is a very key part, engaging the farmers in that as well. And already they've got water efficiencies, world-class water efficiencies within their Alton and Tadcaster breweries. So, as with any guidance and tool that's been developed, it's really important to actually do it in conjunction with farmers, but we've also been doing it with researchers as well. And we carried out a series of training events designed to obviously test the principles of the guide as well, which means that, we know it works, we know that it will potentially deliver change through better water efficiencies. And then it's been distributed widely, both through ASDA, through our own mechanisms, and Molson Coors farmers too. So it is freely available. So in terms of the detail of the 6 simple steps, water saving is, of course, the first. Reducing, reusing and recycling water is the best place to start on that point of view. What is the potential of what you currently use? Is there a way that you can actually look at storage of water? And a lot of farmers are now starting to look at that. And with that comes the challenges of making sure that that water is fit for its use, if it's for drinking water quality for the house, or is it the drinking water quality of the cattle? Is it for washing down and things like that? But with all of these come efficiencies at the end of the day. This is about attention to detail. So on the average dairy farm uses around 31 pounds worth of water a year of mains water. A cow will drink about 77 litres. And so, that can equate to about 1p a litre on the cost of milk. So it's about looking at how can you save that more effectively. Now, you can't reduce the cow's ability to drink water, but what you can do is looking at where you source that water from, the quality of that water, and in addition to that, when you're washing down the parlour or looking at other cleaning mechanisms actually within the field. Very, very key. In terms of protecting the water sources, now, EU regulation, this is a heavily regulated area, and the Water Framework Directive, the bathing water regulations and things like that are all under close scrutiny. And obviously agriculture occupies about 78% of the land area here in the UK. So it's very important to look at farming practices that are ensuring healthy watercourses, and in effect in 2 ways. One being making sure the avoidance of nitrates, pollution risks, pesticides getting into the water, but then alongside that, creating habitats and buffer strips against water to improve water quality, reduce the risk of runoff from farm inputs, and obviously introduce a win-win situation, because anything that runs off into watercourse not only creates a pollution problem, but in addition to that, obviously it's a cost because it's not being as effective as that input should be in terms of actually on where it's intended, the grass or the cereal crop or whatever. So the approach for integrated farm management and the whole farm approach is absolutely vital within this. So there's a lot more detail within the protecting watercourses. Looking at soil management, and it was very interesting when you talk to some farmers about water use, they'll say, well, I don't use water. And you'll say, well, what about, you're spraying or irrigating? Well, oh, I don't irrigate, or I do irrigate. But it was actually saying, well, your crops are growing in water. Do you maintain your water? Are you looking at how you can improve the soil, the water holding capacity of the soil itself? So soil and water management are intrinsically linked and unique to each business. And this is really key in terms of the aiming to actually increase the soil water holding capacity, improve the water use efficiency, get much higher yield per drop of water that falls out of the sky, and also produce a soil that has the capability to freely drain where there are severe water incidences, like rainfall incidences and things like that. So cultivation and soil choice, soil structure are absolutely vital in soil management and good soil management. And for many arable farmers who thought, well, I don't use water, actually getting the opportunity to maximize the potential of water use, rainwater that's falling out of the sky, and maximizing that through better soil management is really key. And then in addition to that, drainage. Inadequate or inappropriate drainage, perhaps the most severe long-term problem. In the 1970s, we had a tremendous amount of work that was done on drainage, creating drainage, improving drainage. And actually, in more recent years, it's one of the areas that perhaps it has been most neglected, whether it be through funding, infrastructure costs and things like that. So there's an increasing amount of work looking at how we can actually improve drainage, identify where the maintenance and management of existing drainage is and can be developed further, and move across from that area as well. Another aspect, of course, has been tracking water use, mapping where the water pipes are, mapping locations of meters, actually having meters there in the first place, and then from there building up a picture of trends in your data. One of the things on farm is that very many farms, a lot of the information will be in the head of the farmer, which is great until he's either not there for the day or she's not there for the day, or actually, they've suddenly sort of made substantial changes to the infrastructure of the farm business. So mapping has been really important. And then from there, identifying the areas for improvement. It's all about, again, attention to detail. And so it's been, certainly as we've been taking this out into fields and out into farms, mapping and soil management for arable farmers has been a really important part of this. And finally, the other area is water availability and sunshine hours. And I just want to show you a few slides here of some of the anomalies that we've had, we've had in 2012 and 2013. We're heading into a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And I think what's interesting is actually the volatility of our weather and the marketplace is actually becoming so norm that actually it's not the volatility anymore. This is the norm, is to have these extreme contrasts. So here, severe rainfall, very heavy rainfall throughout 2012, contrasted by 2013, where there was lower than average rainfall. And then if you look at actually when that rainfall is available, a vast majority of that is not falling at the time where the crop needs it most. And that is, again, our challenge. And of course, the importance of things like keeping reservoirs, developing reservoirs, catching water and things like that. And the other aspect of reservoirs has been the importance of the biodiversity value alongside that as well, both in terms of water quality, but also in terms of nature as well. And then sunshine. 2012, we had a lovely hot spring, which created its own problems because we had drought, continual hot spring. So actually the drilling capability was, for drilling crops and things like that, was reduced. But alongside that, followed by rainfall. So that created the real pressures on crop productivity. Compared to the sunshine, when you look at the sunshine that we had in July this year, and actually in Scotland and places like that throughout the year, some right through some sort of, again, this sort of volatile weather that we're continually seeing. So we've looked at really some key areas of specifically looking at the attention to detail of how water comes onto your farm, how you manage it effectively, how you can look at through soil management and look at things like drainage as well, the importance of mapping and tracking right through to the availability. And what we did was, on one of our leaf demonstration farms at Overbury Estates, go through its use with Jake and how he applies it. So he's not only looked at the issues of things like field buffer strips and supplementing the ditch system, but also looking at measures within the waterways, like creating silt traps and reed beds and a ditch line to reduce the impact on water quality. So that had the drainage effect. It had the opportunity to create better attention to detail there, looking at adjusting the depth and also the width of the ditches to look at the management of the water flow, and again creating an opportunity to look at slowing down the water, sinking particles, and then dug out and returned to the field. So again, improving water quality. The reed bed, of course, acting as a natural water filter, removing nitrates and phosphates, but also as a good habitat and a new habitat on the farm. So this is the win-win situation. And of course, looking at things like monitoring water quality before and after passing through the ditch system to check that it actually is making a difference. So all of these very low-cost measures, but very practical and benefiting the environment at the end of the day as well. So that's just a sort of a quick introduction, really, into the detail of where we've been looking at. You know, water and food production are intrinsically linked. We hear a lot of stories, obviously, about embedded water in our production. And so as farmers, it's really important to make sure that we optimize the use of water and ensure its health and quality. And then integrated farm management, looking at that attention to detail, provides the framework for really helping make those, inform those decisions, right through to simplifying and consolidating the guidance through things like, obviously, the guidance tool of Simply Sustainable Water, and a series of things like our videos and things like that are online. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Caroline. That was a great overview there. So we've had some questions come in, and I think we'll dive straight in with those. So a good one maybe to begin with is someone's asking who in the supply chain should be taking a lead on all of this. Have you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think we all have a responsibility, and I think, you know, it's great to see how the supply chain and the food supply chain in particular is really starting to come together in terms of better communication, whether it be through farmer groups, through retailer and processor groups, and linking in with sort of much more closer stakeholder engagement. So I think there is, without a doubt, a strong drive for better collaboration. But I think it's up to each and every sector that feeds into that supply chain to take their position very seriously in water efficiency, because it needs to be done quicker. And I think if we wait for somebody specifically to take the lead, such as, well, it's government's responsibility because we've set a water framework directive, or it's the retailer's responsibility because they're purchasing the produce, or it's the processor's responsibility, or it's the farmer's responsibility, I think we don't get anywhere. We just end up in actually not making a decision. And I think we should all be fundamentally looking at, this is an issue that we need to address. It's no one individual's problem. It's all our problem. And we should, as we become better and more effective as the supply chain is coming together, we then feed into those routes because there's governance, whether it be global or UK or whatever, is a very slow respondence if we ultimately look for somebody to take that lead.
Great, thank you, Caroline. Another question here. You referred to metering and the importance of metering. Someone's asking how much actual metering should you be looking to do at the early stages, and where should you begin?
Well, I think where you should ultimately begin is knowing exactly how much it's identifying what water sources you have. Are you using mains? Are you using boreholes? And if you're using mains water, or is it from reservoirs and things like that, it's identifying those routes and identifying exactly how much you use at those points. And from there, it's looking very much more at actually then starting to identify which sector of your business then contributes to that. So if it's a pack house and a vegetable processing sector, for example, it's looking at the sort of the inputs and the outputs that are within each part of that operation. So it's measuring and mapping that route. So start off with, what's the total amount, and then start breaking out into those areas that you think are potentially contributing more. So I'm actually married to a dairy farmer, so sort of the key areas and points that may be an issue, as obviously what we use within the parlour, what the calves or indoor housing will use, right through to then going into fields. And as there then become more issues, or you think that there might be a problem, it's working out where the priorities are. At the end of the day, an inline meter is not very much money. It helps identify where the water is being used. It helps very quickly identify where there are leaks, if there are a problem as well, before it's too late, really. And it just costs a lot of money, particularly if you're using mains.
Great, thank you, Caroline. Next question. Someone's asking, are there any resources or publications which you could point them to that give good examples of soil management and that can help store more water?
Yes, well, we've got these Simply Sustainable Soil documents, actually, also on our website, which particularly looks at the soil practices. And then there are, in addition to that, one or two of the videos, actually, that are on our website that look at soil management, which will help identify that. And then it's worth looking at some of the minimum tillage and precision farming cultivation activities. If you Google that, there's some good information resources there. So Vardestad have done some interesting work in particular. And you're very welcome. If this individual would like some more specific information, then please do get in touch, and happy to send further links.
Great, thanks, Caroline. I'll send out a follow-up email to everyone who's attended today, and I'll include Caroline's email in that. So if you are interested in following that up, by all means do. Another question.
Sorry. And also, if they wanted to see it in practice, then visit a leaf demonstration farm. I'm more than happy to. Get you out on the leaf demonstration farms where there's been, a lot of work done on improving soil management. Great.
Sounds like a great opportunity. Brilliant. Another question here. Somebody's asking, have you got any experience of improving water use in agriculture in Africa?
We have leaf mark growers in Africa, and some of the work that they have been doing has been obviously looking at things like water use management as well as biodiversity. Off the top of my head, I can't specifically think of something, but I'm sure that we've got some examples, and I can happily speak to some of my colleagues to address that particular area, and if you're interested to know more. We've got some training documents, again, on our website. We've worked with one or two of our partners, processors and partners, Blue Skies in particular, and Wilmore, for a DFID grant with Waitrose, and we've done a series of training videos for the farmers in Africa, and I can't remember off the top of my head if there's a water one, but I'm sure that we can certainly find further information on that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Caroline. Another question here. So you mentioned about the low-cost measures in terms of drainage. Are there any sort of new technologies coming onto the market that you're aware of which are also kind of helping with drainage issues?
Not off the top of my head. There's been some interesting developments in soil management, which obviously addresses some of the surface aspects where different ridging within soils and things like that, but not if you're talking specifically underground drainage, no. Although we do have some work that we're looking at on farm next year in drainage. So I'm not aware particularly on the top of my head, but it was an area that was being addressed with some farmers that I was with the other day who were very interested in this area.
Thanks, Caroline. And just one final question here, and quite a good one to end on, but any pitfalls which you should look out for in terms of water management?
I think the biggest challenge is water management across a landscape area. And there are big challenges for farmers, the developments, whether it be, concrete developments, roads, infrastructure, and all the pressure that has downstream, basically, is a big pitfall and a big challenge because we don't plan across a landscape scale, although more work is increasingly being done, but it does often mean that actually farmland is used for the dumping ground of the drainage issue. And of course, our ability to forecast weather more accurately. If there's one thing that I know our farmer members would like, and this comes from the Leaf Audit, it is they would like better weather forecasting and interpreting of weather forecasting, because trying to predict long term and managing effectively heavy weather incidences is a real challenge. And as we get the bite of the climate changing to the extreme it does, it's new ways of effectively managing water in field. So I know that our farmer members can probably cope with 1 year of drought or 1 year of wet. But if they have 2 years of flooding, or even 3 years of flooding, or 2 years of drought, managing that within the whole farm process and the cross rotations becomes much more of a challenge, because we are lacking the tools, the resources, the in-field cultivation type techniques, and the knowledge and the right varieties to be grown in those changeable environments to actually effectively grow. So there are some very big challenges in that.
Great. Thank you, Caroline. So that's all we've got time for now, but I'd like to thank Caroline for her time today and for getting through so many questions, and also for everyone who's joined us for this webinar. Just to remind you all, a recording of the webinar and the presentation slides will be archived on the 2 Degrees platform. So I hope you found today useful and interesting, and you'll be able to join us for future webinars in the coming months. So thank you.